Welcome, Dr. Michael Kelso. Before we begin, I'm just going to say a couple of words about what we're talking about here, and then I'll take it to you. So, first of all, Curio, what we do is care navigation with a focus on the oncology field. And what that means is we are a health advocate and co-pilot in your pocket. And we help you understand things like your insurance bills, your medical lab results, and understand the next steps that are recommended to preserve and retain good health. So the importance of GutCheck, which is what Dr. Kelso is going to talk to us about today, is that of early screening and diagnosis in the colon cancer world.
I am a gastroenterologist by training. I've been in practice for about 6 years. But my real passion is in sort of connecting digital health with gastroenterology and making colonoscopy a preventive procedure more accessible and efficient for patients. And so over the last year, we've been working diligently to make self-scheduling available for patients through our application, our mobile platform, which is the first and pretty innovative way to get scheduled. I'll let Hillary give you some background as far as sort of the stats and where things stand with colon cancer screening.
Totally. It's so prevalent. We don't talk about it nearly enough, although there's a bit more awareness nowadays with events happening. Like many of us know Chadwick Boseman, the Black Panther. He several years ago unfortunately passed away due to colorectal cancer and was relatively young. I believe he was 42. So it's an important highlight. It's not just him. Many people are unfortunately being diagnosed early and earlier in our community. And it's a preventable disease because we can screen for it early in its growth process. But some quick statistics just to land that home is that 1 in 24 adults will be diagnosed with colorectal cancer in their lifetime. So that means, in your average third grade classroom, that's at least one of you. And in the American Cancer Society, they do a lot of great statistical measurement, and colorectal cancer is the second leading cause of cancer-related deaths, and that's over 50,000 deaths in 2023 alone. So huge number that is preventable. To talk about the preventive actions, 90% of colorectal cancer deaths could be prevented, which is very shocking, I think, to most people. A lot of people, when they get cancer, they're like, oh man, this is unlucky and unfortunate, but this is the card that I've been dealt. And I think with colorectal cancer, people don't realize that we actually could stop that bad luck from ever happening. And proper screening should begin, and correct me if I'm wrong, because the age keeps going younger, but age 45 is currently the recommended age to start screening for healthy adults. But if you have risk factors such as strong family history or genetic predisposition, then we sometimes recommend even earlier.
So average risk people are recommended to get screened at 45. And if you're high risk, and what does that mean? Those are basically people with a first degree relative. So a parent, sibling, a child diagnosed with colon cancer. So we recommend 10 years before the age of diagnosis of that individual. So some people are getting screened even sooner than 45, and we are skewing much younger.
Yeah. So that's it's going to become more and more a part of our lives, I predict. And I'm really excited to see that there's a lot of awareness campaigns going on about it. We've maybe you've seen the inflatable colons that show up at like things like marathons or conferences. So
yeah, and lead from behind, Terry Crews just got his colonoscopy as President Camacho. So that was a very interesting
I saw
video.
that. It was hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, he did have a couple polyps, and so it's great to see him leading sort of the charge, and Ryan Reynolds getting more visible, more people in the limelight, bringing attention to colon cancer screening.
Yeah. I think that's maybe a little side note before we jumped into thick of it that I want to inject is that a lot of people think of cancer as so scary, and unfortunately, it's quite common and normal. And I think it's healthy to inject a bit of humor here and there because it makes it more approachable. So I love the trend towards more humor focused campaigns. Oh,
Yeah, that's fantastic. The importance of screening is kind of understated because colonoscopy does not have to be a scary thing, and it is a preventable disease. Right now, only about 69% of eligible people who are eligible for screening are getting screened. So we have a long way to go.
yeah.
And even those who have been screened, 52% are not up to date. And so we need to do better at bringing awareness to colon cancer screening and letting them know this is a preventable disease.
And that's a good segue into why you started GutCheck. Walk us through that whole decision making or like that planning and design as you were building out the early days of GutCheck and why you saw that it was such an important innovation for the world.
I have a passion for colon cancer screening in general, having had my grandmother and even my first cousin right now dealing with chemotherapy for colon cancer and young, younger than 50. So it's near and dear to my heart that we get people screened because I do believe that if we catch it early or we, take out precancerous polyps, we can prevent disease. I moved to Alabama in 2019. And one of the first things that was told to me is that patients could not understand the concept of open access colonoscopy and proceed with the instructions on how to get that done. So what is open access? So open access is a method of scheduling colonoscopies where patients can get scheduled for procedure without an office visit, an office consultation. So either their insurance or their primary care doctor recommends the colonoscopy because they're 45, and they're either referred or they find a gastroenterologist on their own and go through a process of getting scheduled. So the way we came up with the idea of GutCheck was to make it accessible. So we've created essentially a marketplace for doctors to open up their schedules and allow patients to find a convenient time for them to get their procedure done, pick a date based off their availability, their insurance and location, fill out an eligibility questionnaire, and then once they're approved, get all the instructions back in the application so that they can meet the doctor on the day of their procedure.
You're hitting home in such a practical and useful way because we see all the time in the clinical world that really simple hiccups and obstacles stop people from important things. So GutCheck is helping with preparing people. What is a message that you're trying to get across about how the colonoscopy works, et cetera? Because I think a lot of people, we've said that colonoscopies could seem scary to a lot of people. What do you do to reassure people that it's not so scary?
One is that we break down the friction, right? So there's a lot of reasons why people don't pursue a screening. It's not just the procedure itself, the preparation that's involved. So there are some changes that patients need to make as far as their diet, their medications. They do have to take a laxative, which they hear from their friends is horrible. And so that bowel
Going through a
preparation.
cleanse, some people do
Yeah.
cleanses. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I've had some patients create their own bowel prep, so it's so that in itself, sort of making the instructions very clear, delivering them to the patients. Most practices right now hand them a sheet of paper and say, "Hey, good luck." We'll see you on the day of your procedure. So our goal is sort of to help navigate patients from the time that they're referred to the time that, to the point that they have their procedure done. And so guiding them step by step with instructions, nudges, reminders, all those sorts of things that are important for a good screening exam.
Amazing. And then you mentioned that sometimes there's issues with the follow-up afterwards. So tell me a little bit more about the challenges that come after a person gets their colonoscopy.
Yeah, so the challenge with open access and screening colonoscopy, particularly open access, is because I don't meet the patient until the day of their procedure. And so you have to build rapport immediately, right before you talk to them, explain the procedure, get consent. And then afterwards, you're essentially talking to someone who has no information about you or very little from what they've read online, hearing the results of, hey, I found a few polyps or something worse like colon cancer, and delivering that messaging can be very challenging for the provider, but also for the patient. The terminology we use is very hard to understand, particularly what is a polyp. What polyps should I be concerned about, and what polyps I shouldn't be concerned about, and what are the next steps. So I had a patient not too long ago who came in for a screening exam, and unfortunately, we found a colon cancer. And so, oftentimes, just by looking at it, we can tell what it is, and pretty much confidence of 95% or more. And so, letting the patient know that it can be very difficult, and then they go home with that information, and I kind of disappear. I do kind of help navigate the next steps, but there's a big gap of time where patients are sort of lost and fearful. And so I think that's where Curio comes in. They can, helping and sort of navigating the next steps. We kind of leave the situation without clear answers for them.
Yeah, yeah. And, just to jump on that, it's true of not just, what you see with open access, but I think across the board, a lot of patients we've interviewed, they have told us that even people who have like a set PCP and they have like a very relatively comprehensive health system taking care of them, there's still so many gaps and periods where you're waiting for what to do. Like you get a referral, say they are lucky enough to get a referral from a PCP who they know, and then they show up at the colonoscopy, and then there's like weeks in between sometimes where you're just like, okay, now I have to set up an appointment with a oncology doctor, and there's 3 different specialties of oncologists at least. So there's a lot of unknowns. It's like a fire hose of information too. And a lot of patients get scared because they're Googling all sorts of things. And that's what drove us at Curio to start building solutions to solve the fragmentation of healthcare in general. The next point that I wanted to jump into is, we care so much at Curio about empowering a patient to become a self-advocate. And we do that by education and information and a bit of assistance, actually. And how can a person start taking charge over, early screening? How regular should it be?
We share in that sort of commitment to empowering patients, and that's particularly with choice, right? So for us, allowing patients to pick their own providers and the time, that empowerment is substantial. They're more likely to follow through if they know that they can schedule a procedure during their holidays or their day off, or do research on the doctors that they're that are performing exams. The part about empowering after the colonoscopy is very important as well. I get 5 minutes, 10 minutes to explain patients about what the results mean. And so, and particularly in the setting of colon cancer, I'm often having to refer them to an oncologist or a surgeon who the patient has no clue who those people are. And so giving them resources to go out and look for, their own providers that would, suit them best and, provide the best care for them. It's very needed and important for care coordination.
Yeah, I so resonate with that, and that's the reason why we actually launched our in beta right now, but it's active. It's our, we call it the MD translator, and what is actually a very powerful tool. And we can scan or take a picture of a pathology report, for example, and they often are filled with a lot of technical lingo that is meant for the next doctor to take a look at, but the patient is left with it being like, oh man, this looks very scary. And simply by the fact that I don't know what half these words mean, we do like a layperson friendly interpretation for the patient and offer next steps, which usually are there, but we lay them out in a way that's easy for people to save or even directly take action on. We're very excited as we come to the end of our chat today to announce that, GutCheck and Curio are going to partner to help bring people to the colonoscopy and then from the colonoscopy to the next best step. Before we end, what are some last big messages or takeaways that you'd like to share with listeners?
I think the biggest take home is that we all need, as patients or individuals, that we all need to be very proactive in our own health. Pursuing regular screening for cancers that are preventable, like colon cancer, is very important for all of us, and particularly because it can save lives. And so catching things early and taking out precancerous polyps. And I believe tools like GutCheck and Curio can help make that process a lot easier and less daunting.
Do you have any last words to say also about where GutCheck is launching or is already available, where to find out more info?
We just launched our second site from our pilot site in Charlotte with Queen City Gastroenterology with Ben Ogunwale. So patients in the Charlotte area can now book their own procedures there. And we're looking forward to building out new tools. So we're very excited about our growth and working with Curio to coordinate care for all our patients that we screen.
Yeah, and we're available, regardless of where you live. We are excited to support, especially, a lot of the regions you focus on with GutCheck right now are deeply disconnected from big organizations and systems. So I think you're doing an amazing service to help close the health equity gap as well. Awesome.
That's fantastic. And likewise, and I appreciate all that you do in helping patients sort of navigate difficult times in their lives.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Kelso, for being with us today. And we're so excited to see what you and GutCheck are up to in the upcoming months.
Looking forward to chatting with you again soon.